The CIA is getting sued. Former director Mike Pompeo, who some say is a pompous, but sued for spying on Julian Assange's London visitors. Well, as soon as you heard Pamela Anderson was coming over for dinner, well, Pompeo wanted to come over too, but he wanted to look through the walls and the creepy cameras hidden through the vile ceilings of that Ecuadorian embassy. Well, a lawsuit filed on Monday claims that the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, aka the Cocaine Importing Agency, and its former director, Mike Pompeo, illegally spied on journalists, attorneys, and other individuals who met with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange while he stayed at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Yeah, CIA sued over the alleged spying on lawyers, journalists who met Assange. And if you recall, Steve Bannon, that wonderful, that the person who was in charge and had power at one point, remember he said Roger Stone went to the embassy and met with Julian Assange? Never happened. Continuing. Well, named as plaintiffs in the lawsuit are journalists Charles Glass and John Goetz, as well as attorneys Margaret Kutzler, Deborah Herberg, who had previously represented Assange. Richard Roth, lead attorney for the plaintiffs, told the press that, quote, the United States Constitution shields American citizens from U.S. government overreach, even when the activities take place in foreign embassy in a foreign country. Well, the suit explains that, quote, prior to their visits with Assange, each visitor was required to surrender his or her electronic devices, smartphones, laptops, and other factual technologies as computers, any form of communication device. You had to give it up at the front door before you entered the Ecuadorian embassy. Now, to cap it all off here, the plaintiffs claim that the U.S. Global copied the data of all the devices that they turned in without their consent or knowledge, without approval of the Ecuadorian government. So the security firm that was in charge of running security for the Ecuadorian embassy was pretty much getting everyone's devices and wiping all the data off it and putting it in their own record and bookkeeping. After allegedly copying the data found on the electronics of all visitors, especially Pamela Anderson, the court document says that U.S. Global, the security firm, did, quote, provided the information to the defendant United States CIA, then headed by the defendant Michael Pompeo. Wow. Well, to speak about this and a whole lot of other things in that London sector is my dear friend Roger Stone, who's going to be joining us right now. Roger, it's been a long time. How are you doing, my friend?
Dean, I apologize for being tardy tonight. I'm going to be completely honest with your viewers. I fell asleep.
I hope you have a doctor's note, Roger, because we'll let this one slide.
It's been a long, very hard day battling the disinformation of the deep state. Like many, I was not only shocked by the over-the-top raid on the president's home in Florida, but I was particularly surprised that the number one item on the list of documents removed was a copy of the presidential issue of clemency that the president extended to me when I was falsely convicted in the Mueller witch hunt. If you go back and think about it now, of course, I was convicted of lying to Congress about Russian collusion, which we now indisputably know never actually happened. You even wonder how that was even possible. But there was a time and a hysteria where Robert Mueller had credibility, where no one would stand up to him. And of course, the DC court system is an epically corrupt, politicized venue where no Republican, no conservative, no libertarian, no independent, no free thinker will ever get a fair trial.
No, that's true, Roger. And if anything, you're guilty of just being completely cool, awesome, and one hell of a badass. And maybe they thought you were just Russian collusion from all the vodka tonics over the course of a decade. But this is very interesting now, Roger. We're at a point in time where we have a lawless agency that's been politicized, polarized, and totally un-American, that they're indeed gunning for you. In following, here's one of the documents they took for your clemency, and I recall that at the time. This is it right here, and this is coming from News Wars, and the receipt for property, and at least they spelt your name right somewhere. But we've never seen anything like this, Roger. We've never seen anything like this during the Nixon times, anywhere in our lifetime. This is unprecedented, is it not?
No, it's really quite extraordinary. I mean, it's very hard to try to fathom this, recognizing that from the moment that President Trump recognized that I had been framed and subjected to a Soviet-style show trial, and most importantly, I was accused at sentencing of covering up for Donald Trump. Covering up exactly what? The Russian collusion that didn't exist? The links between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks that were never established. I was convicted essentially of reading what Julian Assange said online and posting it to my Twitter feed, is essentially what I did. It was not a secret that Julian Assange was going to publish information gleaned from Hillary Clinton in October. He reported it over and over and over again, but the government acted like this was some kind of a secret when it wasn't a secret at all. But from the moment that the president, in an extraordinary act of both courage and strength, as well as mercy and justice, elected to commute my death sentence, which essentially to send a 68-year-old man with a lifetime history of asthma to a dank prison in Georgia, where before there were no COVID cases, when in fact there were over 200. The idea was for me to die in prison. People as diverse as Hillary Clinton, Eric Swalwell, Jerry Nadler, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, and others have always claimed, without any evidence whatsoever, well, Stone made some corrupt bargain with Donald Trump. Stone agreed to keep his mouth shut regarding unspecified and non-existent misdeeds by Donald Trump in return for executive clemency. No, when Donald Trump saw the way the judge conducted the trial, particularly when he saw that the jury forewoman had been caught red-handed attacking me and Donald Trump and all of his supporters on Twitter and Facebook the year before she was selected as a juror in my case, and specifically attacked me regarding my indictment in a case in which she would later be chosen as the jury forewoman, keeping those posts on a private setting during jury selection and during the trial, and then trying unsuccessfully to quietly erase them, delete them after the trial. Once he saw that, I think he understood what was afoot here, and through the grace of God, answering all of my prayers to the Almighty, he saved my life. They can investigate that all they want. I had no conversations or contact with President Donald Trump, even through my lawyers or through any other third party, from the moment I was charged in January of 2019 until the moment that my sentence was commuted in, I guess it would have been November.
Yeah. 2019. And Roger, I don't know. I mean, since that happened, I can attest to it. Even all the way back to 2016, when we were talking often, you've never even expressed that you spoke to Julian Assange. You never had tea with him. You weren't talking to Trump or any of this. So I've attested to this. This has been a witch hunt for you because you're very outspoken. You have a lot of influence. You're articulate, and you have the style and grace that a lot of these dweebs in the DC Beltway just don't have, and they want what you have. Now, do you want to comment on this now? Because this is we were talking about WikiLeaks now and Julian Assange. Now saying that all the people that did visit the embassy in London, all their devices that they had to give up at the door, they were all swiped and taken, all the info and data taken from that, given to the cocaine importing agency in Pompeo. Now they're getting sued. Do you want to make a statement on that? Because that is dastardly unusual, how they really want to go after Julian Assange right now.
Well, what's particularly extraordinary is that Mike Pompeo actually thinks that he is a viable Republican candidate for president. I'm not a big fan of Mike Isikoff at yahoo.com, to say the least. He's an apologist for the deep state. he was actively involved in pushing the Steele dossier and trying to pretend that it was real. In fact, the FBI took it to him. He wrote about it. Then they took his clipping and used it in court to say, "You see, Your Honor, this is real," because Yahoo reported on it. So he's a bad guy. He's a criminal. But he did have an excellent article in which he essentially revealed that Pompeo looked at various ways to assassinate Assange in London.
Really? Wow.
This is really quite extraordinary. There has never been any evidence actually put forward that proves that Julian Assange was, as Mike Pompeo said, a foreign actor, i.e., an agent of the Russians. It's a great meme. John Brennan can say it as many times as he wants. Unfortunately, it doesn't make it true. And therefore, if you are a journalist working for the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or the Guardian, perhaps the worst of them all, or the Times of London, you should be chilled by what is happening to Julian Assange. What's amazing in this country is how the left loved Julian Assange when he was revealing the deepest secrets of the George W. Bush administration, and when he was revealing the deepest secrets of the Dick Cheney war machine and the profiteering of Halliburton, for example. They only decided that Assange was a Russian spy or a Russian agent and a bad guy when he started pointing out the corruption of the Clintons and the Obamas. Then suddenly, oh, he's a terrible criminal.
Yeah.
I have to point out, by the way, that even currently, he's not charged with anything in connection with the release of the data that he used to expose Hillary Clinton. And to this day,
I was just going to say that. Yes.
no one has ever questioned the authenticity or the accuracy of anything that WikiLeaks has ever published. Can the New York Times say that? Can the Washington Post say that? Can the Wall Street Journal say that? So I think it is abundantly clear that he is a journalist, that he is being penalized because he has exposed the deepest secrets of the two-party duopoly that seeks to cancel the U.S. Constitution. I have paid mightily for taking up his cause, but I have no regrets.
No, you did nothing wrong. And I never understood why Steve Bannon tried to testify against you, Sloppy Steve, and then he's getting charged. They're trying to charge him, and I don't wish any ill will to anybody. That's terrible. And then you have the resurgence of Barr here, Elton Barr, who's now going with Ivana and all these, or Ivanka, excuse me, and trying to talk about the day after January 5th. We can't say it here. They're trying to use that as the bully pulpit to just eradicate any kind of dissent here in the United States. Then you have the resurgence of this carcass here, John Bolton, who's now saying, well, he's hurt that the Iranian guard only offered $300,000 for a hit. He thinks he's worth more than that. And I'm thinking, John Bolton is a guy that never saw a war he didn't like. He wanted to go into Venezuela. He wanted to rock Iran's world. And now he's trying to put Trump in jail, which ultimately, Roger, it looks like they want Donald Trump, Alex Jones, anyone else close to those people in prison. And it's not right. And people like Millie Weaver, as I told everybody, has a lot to do with a lot of this takedown because she signed an NDA with Giuliani and a lot of people for this very moment. But that's a separate issue. But you want to speak on that because this is a very dangerous time in the United States.
Well, I think your basic premise is correct that the deep state, the Democrats, but it's really a two-party duopoly. The leaders of the establishment in both the Republican and Democratic Party, whose views on all issues are identical: endless foreign war, erosion of our civil liberties, massive debt, the end of the First Amendment, our First Amendment rights, massive censorship and cancellation of anyone who speaks up against the machine. They're petrified of Donald Trump. They're just petrified of it. He's beaten them in one election. I think it's highly likely he beat them in 2 elections. When they say, oh no, the courts rejected all that. No, the courts refused to hear all that. There's a big difference between weighing evidence in a case and ruling against someone or ruling against the petitioner and refusing to even hear the case. So none of these cases were ever heard. Some of them, I will admit to you, were not that skillfully brought. That's when I wasn't involved in any of that. The ongoing efforts to weaponize January 6th, some woman named Cassidy Hutchinson, who I've never heard of in my entire life, testifies under oath that it is, quote, her understanding that on January 5th, President Donald Trump told White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to call General Michael Flynn and Roger Stone, and then Liz Cheney helped her out and said to find out what was going to happen on January 6th. Dean, I can tell you definitively, I've never talked to Mark Meadows on the phone in my life. I think I met him once in 2019 when he was a congressman. Nor did I speak to anyone else at the White House on that day or in the days preceding it. Hutchison goes on to say that there was a war room at the Willard Hotel, which interestingly enough is the hotel I got married in, and was also, interestingly enough, the site of Richard Nixon's presidential campaign headquarters in 1968. But if there was a war room in the Willard Hotel, I didn't know about it, and I certainly was never there. But she goes on to say there was a war room and that Meadows, the White House Chief of Staff, wanted to go there for a briefing, but that she, Cassidy, talked him out of going. And then Meadows subsequently settled for a telephone briefing with Stone and Flynn. That's just a lie. There would be nothing to brief him about because neither of us were involved in the effort to win a delay in the certification of the Electoral College, something Hillary Clinton tried to do in 2016, but which now is completely forgotten about.
Yeah. She just tried to resurrect hell itself and just unleash the demons on all of us humans here. Roger, you want to make any predictions about the big upcoming midterms and ultimately the 2024 ticket of who the Democrats are going to pick? I think they're going to roll out Gavin Newsom, the alleged governor of California, and Michelle Obama as their ticket as Biden deteriorates into his own squabble and dribble. And you want to, are we looking at a Trump DeSantis ticket too? So just the Roger Stone predictions.
Very difficult. First of all, you recognize that in American politics, as we have just seen, a week is a lifetime. You notice how little discussion there's been this week of Roe v. Wade. The entire political dynamic has been changed by this incredible overreach by the Biden Justice Department and the FBI. That has completely changed the political outlook. Our politics are extremely volatile. So to make a prediction about an election, even one that is just several months away at this point, would be foolhardy. Things can change very dramatically. Certainly the backdrop of record gas prices, food shortages, rampant inflation destroying the average working family, and then the stellar foreign policy record of the Biden administration, where we can't afford to seal our southern border, but we can ship an initial $40 billion down payment to Ukraine with more to follow. The backdrop is there for a Republican resurgence. I do think people need to be somewhat careful. Going from Nancy Pelosi to Kevin McCarthy is like leaving the dirty diapers on the baby and changing the pins. In other words, if we elect establishment Republicans to replace establishment Democrats, then you can't expect that to change the trajectory of the country. To go to your larger question, I do not believe that Joe Biden will be in any kind of shape to run for re-election. The man is ill. He barely seems to know where he is. I find him a pitiful and sympathetic figure. I don't wish him any ill will, but I think he's being used and propped up by others. It's not even clear that he knows what week is. I love it when he shakes hands with non-existent people. That
And I thought you were going to say when we changed the diapers on the Biden, but then you said baby. So thank you for clearing that up. Roger, I got to thank you for coming on.
so to
Go
finish,
ahead.
it
Oh, yes, please.
will be in this order: Michelle Obama for president, Pete Buttigieg for vice president. That's the Stone prediction.
Okay. Well, and Liz Cheney, the daughter of the Penguin, she might be the neocons pick, just coming out of nowhere because she's going to lose her race. But the good news, Roger, we have a lot of organic, independent thinkers that are running for state senate, state Congress that are winning. We just had Sheila Walker on in Hawaii. Hawaii is one of the biggest welfare states in Democrat, mafia-controlled CCP areas in the union, but they're trying to make a change right now. Any maybe word of advice you want to give like people like Sheila Walker and other locals around the United States right now?
Well, never give up the fight. The fight for America continues. Liz Cheney took a beating tonight. The media will try to prop her up as a Republican challenger to Donald Trump. The pedophiles at the Lincoln Project will rally to her side. It's amazing that the media hates Donald Trump so badly that they're willing to deify Darth Vader himself, Dick Cheney, a man who lied the country into war. First of all, by claiming that Iraq had something to do with the attack on America on 9/11, which it didn't. Then claiming that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, specifically yellow cake uranium that they would use to develop nuclear weapons. 150,000 Americans lost their lives. More than 250,000 Iraqis were murdered. His friends at Halliburton did very, very well on the war, I must say that.
Yeah.
So this is the single most evil, corrupt individual in American politics. And he makes a TV commercial saying, Donald Trump's the most dangerous man in the world. No, dude, you're the most dangerous man in the world.
No, he is. He's such an evil villain. And how the hell is he still alive? How the hell is Dick Cheney still alive with artificial hearts, shooting people with muskets in the face, going, pigeon hunting or whatever? I mean, this guy, I have to remember, oh yeah, he's still alive. My God. But Roger, we go back so far. A lot of people may not know, Roger, incredible book. If you haven't read it, LBJ did it. The case, the Kennedy book, the case against LBJ. Such a great book.
Against LBJ. Strongly recommend if you're interested in the Kennedy assassination, and all Americans are, because it's a murder mystery. The man who killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, is the place to start. Dean, I apologize for being late, but better late than never.
Better, yeah. And Roger, we got to finish our movie that COVID disrupted when all that went down. We have some great footage, and I think we have our better days are ahead of us, Roger. And it's so good to hear your voice and see you again. It's been a long time, but let's have you back on sometime and in a better timing situation. And you look good and healthy, and Godspeed to you and the family.
Well, thank you. God bless you, and Godspeed, and never give up fighting. Thanks.
Never give up. Thank you very much, Roger.